The asteroid mining station Omega-7 had been silent for 3 days when the distress beacon finally reached the exploration vessel Dawnrunner. Communication Officer Beth Martinez stared at her screen with growing concern as the automated message played again and again through the ship's speakers. The voice belonged to Station Commander Rick Torres, but something was wrong with the transmission. It cut off abruptly every 12 seconds, always at the same point. "Captain, we need to investigate," Martinez said, turning to address the man. Studying star charts at the navigation console, Captain David Lee had been expecting this moment for weeks. The Outer Rim mining operations had been reporting strange encounters, and Omega-7 was the 5th station to go dark this month. "Set course for the station," Lee ordered. "But keep our weapons ready and maintain full sensor sweeps. Something's hunting out here?" The Dawnrunner changed course toward the distant asteroid field where Omega-7 hung in the darkness like a metal spider clinging to a massive rock. As they approached, the ship's sensors began picking up unusual readings. There was another vessel docked to the station, something that didn't match any design in Earth's databases. Dr. Amanda Foster, the ship's xenobiologist, studied the scans with fascination and fear. The alien ship was elegant and deadly, covered in what looked like organic armor plating that seemed to shift and move even as they watched. "Captain, I'm detecting life signs aboard both vessels, but the readings are strange. The alien signatures are unlike anything we've encountered before." Lee made his decision quickly: prepare a boarding party. "We go in armed but not aggressive. If there are survivors on that station, we need to get them out." The airlock of Omega-7 opened with a hiss that echoed through the empty corridors. Lee led his team through passages that should have been bustling with miners and technicians. Instead, they found only silence and the low hum of life support systems running on emergency power. The lighting was dim, casting long shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. "Captain," whispered Security Chief Tom Wilson, his voice tight with tension, "motion sensors are picking up movement in the main cargo bay. Multiple contacts, but they're not moving like humans." They made their way through the station carefully, weapons drawn but fingers off triggers. The cargo bay doors were sealed, but through the observation windows they could see figures moving inside. These weren't the missing miners. The beings inside were tall and graceful, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shimmer between different colors. They moved with a fluid grace that was both beautiful and unsettling. "Fascinating," Dr. Foster breathed, pressing closer to the window. "Look at their physiology. Those limbs suggest an adaptation to low-gravity environments, and that color-changing skin might be some form of communication or camouflage." One of the aliens turned toward the window as if sensing their presence. Its face was angular and alien, with large eyes that seemed to hold an ancient intelligence. When it saw the humans watching, it tilted its head in what might have been curiosity. Then it did something unexpected. It raised one long-fingered hand and pressed it against the glass from the other side, directly opposite where Dr. Foster had placed her own hand. "They know we're here," Lee said quietly. "The question is, are they friend or foe?" The alien seemed to understand the tension in the air. It moved away from the window and returned moments later with what was clearly a translation device. Words began appearing on a small screen it held up to the glass, words in perfect English. "We mean no harm to your people. We are the Valari. We came seeking trade but found only fear and violence." Lee felt his heart sink. Where are the miners? What happened to the crew of this station? The alien's response came quickly. "They attacked us when we tried to communicate. We defended ourselves. Your people are alive but restrained for their safety and ours. We did not wish for conflict." Dr. Foster looked at the captain with concern. This could be a misunderstanding that escalated. If they're telling the truth, the miners might have panicked when they saw the alien ship and opened fire first. "And if they're lying?" Wilson asked grimly. The alien seemed to sense their doubt. It moved away from the window again and returned with Commander Torres himself. The mining station's leader looked shaken but unharmed. He was obviously free to move around, not bound or imprisoned. When he saw the Dawn Runner crew through the window, his face showed relief mixed with embarrassment. "Captain Lee," Torres called out, his voice muffled by the sealed door. "These beings aren't hostile. We made a terrible mistake. When their ship appeared, we thought they were pirates or raiders. We fired on them before they could explain themselves." The alien held up its translator again. "We seek knowledge and friendship with your species. We have much to offer in trade for your unique perspectives and skills. But first, we must establish trust between our peoples." Lee felt the weight of the moment. Humanity's first contact with an alien species, and it had started with violence and misunderstanding. "Open the cargo bay doors," he ordered. "Let's try to fix this mess." As the doors slid open, the aliens moved forward slowly, their hands clearly visible and empty of weapons. The lead alien, who seemed to be their diplomat, approached with careful steps. When it spoke, its voice was melodic and strange, but the translator rendered its words clearly. "I am Speaker Naya of the Valari Collective. We come from the far reaches of this galaxy seeking new friends and trading partners. We have watched your species for some time and are impressed by your resilience and creativity. We wish to learn from you and to share our own knowledge in return." Lee stepped forward and extended his hand in the universal human gesture of greeting. "I'm Captain David Lee of the Earth Defense Force. I think we got off to a rough start, but maybe we can begin again?" Speaker Naya looked at the offered hand with curiosity, then reached out with her own elongated fingers. When their hands touched, Lee felt a strange warmth, and for just a moment, he could sense something of the alien's thoughts. There was no deception there, only hope and a genuine desire for peaceful contact. "Yes," Naya said, her translator crackling slightly. "Let us begin again. But first, there is something you must know about our peoples. We Valari have a tradition for establishing trust between species. It involves sharing something precious and dangerous from our culture. We call it the trust poison." Dr. Foster looked alarmed. "Poison? What kind of tradition involves poison?" Naya's color-shifting skin flickered through several hues that might have been amusement. "Among the Valari, to share our most deadly toxin with a new species is the ultimate gesture of trust. If they can survive it, we know they are strong enough to be true allies. If they cannot, at least they die knowing we trusted them with our most guarded secret." The cargo bay fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't just first contact anymore. This was a test that could determine the future relationship between humanity and an entire alien civilization. And somewhere in the darkness between the stars, other species would be watching to see how this encounter played out. The emergency council meeting aboard the Dawn Runner lasted 6 hours, but it felt like 6 days to Captain Lee. The ship's conference room had never hosted such a momentous discussion. Around the oval table sat the senior officers, Dr. Foster, with her xenobiology expertise, and on the main screen, Speaker Naya participated through the translation link they had established with the alien vessel. "Let me understand this correctly," Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roberts said, his voice strained with disbelief. "Your people want one of us to drink a poison that has killed representatives from dozens of alien species, and this is somehow supposed to prove we're trustworthy?" Naya's image flickered slightly as her translator processed the question. "The concept is difficult to explain in your language. Among the Valari, trust is not given lightly. When we first encountered the Korathi Empire, their ambassador drank the trust poison and survived for 3 minutes before succumbing. In those 3 minutes, he spoke of his people's honor and their desire for peace. Though he died, his courage earned our respect, and we have been allies with the Korathi for over 2 centuries. Dr. Foster leaned forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her concern. "How many species have attempted this ritual? What are the survival rates?" "In our recorded history, 47 species have participated in the trust poison ceremony. Of these, 3 survived completely unharmed, 12 survived with permanent damage to their nervous systems, and 32 died within the first hour. However, all who participated, living or dead, earned our respect and established trade relationships between our peoples." Commander Torres, who had joined the meeting after being freed from the mining station, spoke up from his chair. "Captain, I've seen what these Velari can do. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. If we can establish a good relationship with them, it could change everything for humanity." "And if we can't?" Security Chief Wilson asked bluntly. "What happens if we refuse this test?" Naya's colors shifted to darker hues that seemed to indicate sadness. "We would understand your refusal, but we could not offer full trust or advanced technological exchange. Your people would be classified as a cautious contact species. Trade would be limited to basic materials, and our defensive pacts would not extend to your worlds." Lee felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Through the conference room's viewport, he could see the Velari ship still docked to the mining station. It was beautiful in its alien design, all flowing curves and bioluminescent panels. But it was also massive, easily 10 times the size of the Dawnrunner. If things went wrong, his ship wouldn't stand a chance. "What exactly is this poison?" Dr. Roberts asked. "Can you tell us anything about its chemical composition?" "The trust poison is derived from the Nithara plant, which grows only on our homeworld. It is a neurotoxin that attacks the central nervous system of most carbon-based life forms. The exact mechanism varies by species, but typically it causes paralysis followed by respiratory failure. For most beings, death occurs within 15 to 30 minutes. Dr. Foster was taking notes frantically. "Is there any way to prepare for exposure? Any treatments or antidotes?" "No preparation is permitted, as that would defeat the purpose of the test. However, I can tell you that in the 3 species who survived, survival seemed to be related to unique physiological adaptations. The Korathi have redundant nervous systems. The Zellan possess natural toxin filters in their blood. The Mikari have rapid cellular regeneration capabilities." "What about humans?" Lee asked. "Do you have any predictions about how our physiology might react?" Naya was quiet for a long moment, her colors cycling through patterns that seemed to indicate deep thought. "Your species is unknown to us in terms of toxin resistance. However, we have observed something interesting about humans during our monitoring of your worlds. You seem to have an unusual relationship with substances that are harmful to other species. You consume ethanol for pleasure despite it being a poison. You eat plants that contain capsaicin, which causes pain responses in most creatures. Some of your people even seek out foods that are potentially deadly if prepared incorrectly." Dr. Foster looked up from her notes with sudden interest. "She's talking about alcohol, spicy foods, and things like fugu fish. Humans do have a strange tendency to consume things that other species would avoid. This suggests," Naya continued, "that your species may have evolved some unique resistance to toxins. But we cannot be certain. The trust poison is far more potent than anything naturally occurring on your world." The meeting continued for another hour, but Lee could see that they were going in circles. The choice was simple in its complexity. Accept the test and potentially sacrifice someone's life for the chance at an alliance that could transform humanity's place in the galaxy, or refuse and accept a limited relationship with beings who possess technology and knowledge beyond Earth's wildest dreams. "I need some time to think," Lee finally said. "Speaker Naya, how long do we have to make this decision?" "There is no time limit from our perspective. However, our presence here will eventually be noticed by other species who monitor this region of space. Some of them are not as interested in peaceful contact as we are. The sooner we can establish formal relations, the sooner we can offer your people protection under our alliance network." After Naya signed off, the room fell into uncomfortable silence. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to be the first to say it. Finally, Dr. Foster spoke up. "If someone is going to do this, it should be me. I have the most knowledge about xenobiology, and I might be able to provide useful medical data even if the worst happens." "Absolutely not," Dr. Roberts said immediately. "If anyone attempts this insanity, they'll need immediate medical support. I can't provide that if I'm the one drinking poison." Commander Torres cleared his throat. "Captain, I volunteer." This whole situation started because of my mistake at the mining station. Let me make it right. Lee looked around the table at these people who were willing to risk everything for the good of humanity. It reminded him why he had joined the Defense Force in the first place. The decision isn't made yet. I want everyone to think about this overnight. We'll meet again in 12 hours. As the meeting broke up, Lee remained in the conference room, staring out at the alien ship. Somewhere aboard that vessel, Speaker, Naya and her people were waiting for an answer that could shape the future of two civilizations. The pressure was enormous, but Lee knew that some decisions couldn't be rushed. He just hoped they would make the right choice and that whoever drank the trust poison would live to see the consequences of their courage. The gym aboard the Dawnrunner had never been so crowded at 3 in the morning. Unable to sleep, half the crew had gathered there, some working out their anxiety on exercise equipment, others just sitting and talking in hushed voices about the impossible decision facing them. Lieutenant Mike Barnes was running on the treadmill when Captain Lee entered, also unable to find rest. "Couldn't sleep either, Captain?" Barnes asked, slowing his pace but not stopping. The young navigation officer had been quiet during the meeting, but Lee could see the wheels turning in his head. "Too much to think about," Lee replied, settling onto a bench nearby. "What's your take on all this, Lieutenant?" Barnes was quiet for a moment, focusing on his breathing as he ran. "I keep thinking about something my grandfather told me. He was a test pilot back in the early days of space exploration. He said that every major advance in human history required someone to take a leap into the unknown. Someone had to be first." "This is a bit more than a leap," Lee said grimly. "This could be a step off a cliff." "Maybe," Barnes agreed. "But what's the alternative? We stay isolated, limited to this small corner of the galaxy, while civilizations with technology we can't even imagine decide our fate for us." Dr. Foster entered the gym, looking as tired as everyone else felt. She had dark circles under her eyes and carried a tablet full of research notes. "Captain, I've been reviewing everything we know about human toxin resistance. I think I might have found something important." Lee and Barnes both turned their attention to her as she pulled up data on her tablet. "I've been looking at the evolutionary history of human digestion and metabolism. Humans are actually quite remarkable when it comes to processing potentially harmful substances. Our ancestors survived ice ages, famines, and hostile environments by being able to eat things that would kill other mammals." "Such as?" Lee asked. "Cassava root, which contains cyanide compounds. Various mushrooms that are toxic to most animals. Even common foods like chocolate, which is poisonous to many species. Humans have evolved incredibly efficient liver enzymes and gut bacteria that can break down substances that would be lethal to other creatures." Barnes stopped his treadmill and joined the conversation. "Are you saying humans might actually have a chance of surviving this poison?" "I'm saying we have adaptations that no other species in the galaxy might possess. The Villari mentioned that the 3 surviving species had unique physiological traits." "Well, so do we. Our combination of liver function, gut bacteria diversity, and metabolic flexibility is actually quite rare in the animal kingdom." Lee felt a spark of hope for the first time since the crisis began. "What kind of chance are we talking about?" "Rough odds?" Dr. Foster hesitated. "Based on what I know about human physiology and the limited information about the trust poison, I'd estimate maybe a 30% survival rate. But that's just a guess. The problem is that this toxin is completely alien. Our evolved resistances might not apply at all." 30% is better than I was expecting," Barnes said thoughtfully. "And a lot better than the odds faced by early astronauts or deep-sea explorers." As they talked, more crew members drifted into the gym. Word was spreading through the ship about Dr. Foster's research, and people wanted to hear the details firsthand. Soon there was an impromptu gathering of nearly 20 people, all discussing the implications of the trust poison test. "The way I see it," said engineer Lisa Chun, "this isn't just about one person's life. This is about humanity's future in the galaxy. If we don't take this chance now, we might never get another one." Chief Wilson, ever the voice of caution, shook. his head. And if we lose someone, we'll have accomplished nothing except proving that humans die just like everyone else. There has to be another way to earn their respect. Speaker Naya was very clear, Dr. Foster reminded him. This is their traditional method of establishing trust. We can't just propose an alternative and expect them to abandon centuries of custom. The discussion continued for hours, with valid points being made on all sides. Some argued that the risk was too great, that no alliance was worth a human life. Others contended that the potential benefits were so enormous that they had a duty to try. As dawn approached, Leah realized that the crew was essentially split down the middle. "We're not going to solve this tonight," he finally said. "Everyone get some rest. We'll make a decision at the official meeting this afternoon." As people began to disperse, Lieutenant Barnes approached the captain privately. "Sir, I've made my decision. If we're going to do this, I volunteer." Lee studied the young officer's face. Barnes was barely 25, with his whole life ahead of him. "Mike, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do," Barnes interrupted. "Captain, I joined the Defense Force to explore the galaxy and make contact with new civilizations. This is exactly what I signed up for. And if Dr. Foster is right about human toxin resistance, I've got as good a chance as anyone." Before Lee could respond, Dr. Foster spoke up. "Lieutenant, if you're serious about this, there are some things you should know. The toxin attacks the nervous system, which means you'll likely experience seizures, paralysis, and potentially respiratory failure. Even if you survive, there could be permanent neurological damage." Barnes nodded grimly. "I understand the risks, Doctor, but I also understand the opportunity. If I survive this, I'll go down in history as the human who opened the galaxy to our species. If I don't survive, at least I'll have tried." Lee felt a mixture of pride and sorrow as he looked at the young man. This was exactly the kind of courage and dedication that had made humanity's expansion into space possible. "I appreciate your willingness, Lieutenant, but the decision isn't made yet. Let's see what the morning brings." As the impromptu gathering finally broke up, Lee remained in the gym with his thoughts. Through the viewport, he could see the first hints of the system star beginning to illuminate the asteroid field. In a few hours, he would have to make one of the most important decisions in human history. The fate of an entire species might rest on his choice. He just hoped that when the moment came, he would have the wisdom to choose correctly and the courage to live with the consequences. The formal ceremony was scheduled to take place in the cargo bay of the mining station, with representatives from both species present. Captain Lee had made his decision after the morning briefing, and Lieutenant Barnes stood ready to fulfill his volunteer commitment. The young officer had spent the last hour in medical being fitted with every monitoring device Dr. Roberts could attach without interfering with the test. Wireless heart monitor, neural activity sensors, blood oxygen tracker, and an emergency injection system loaded with broad-spectrum antitoxins, Dr. Roberts explained as he made final adjustments. "I know the Villari said no preparation is allowed, but they didn't say anything about monitoring equipment." Barnes nodded, trying to keep his nerves under control. The reality of what he was about to do was starting to sink in. In less than an hour, he would either be dead or the first human to survive an alien poison that had killed dozens of other species. "Doctor, if this goes wrong, make sure you document everything. The medical data might save someone else's life in the future." "It's not going to go wrong," Dr. Foster said firmly from across the medical bay. "I've been running calculations all night. Human liver enzyme production is off the charts compared to most mammalian species. Our gut bacteria diversity is incredible, and our neural redundancy systems are more robust than anyone realizes." Dr. Roberts looked skeptical. "Amanda, those are all theoretical advantages. We're dealing with a completely unknown toxin here." "Unknown to us," she corrected. "But we know it's a neurotoxin, and we know how it typically kills. The human nervous system has built-in safeguards that evolved to protect us from natural toxins on Earth. Those same safeguards might work against alien poisons, too." The discussion was interrupted by Commander Torres entering the medical bay. Lieutenant Barnes, the Valari delegation is ready. They've prepared the ceremonial chamber and are waiting for us. Barnes took a deep breath and stood up. The monitoring equipment was surprisingly light, most of it incorporated into a special uniform that Dr. Roberts had modified. I'm ready. The walk to the mining station felt longer than usual, even though it was only a few hundred meters through the connecting tunnel. The crew members they passed offered words of encouragement and support, but Barnes could see the worry in their eyes. Everyone understood what was at stake. The cargo bay had been transformed for the ceremony. The Valari had brought beautiful crystalline formations that filled the space with soft, shifting light. Speaker Naya and 3 other Valari stood at the center of the room, their color-changing skin cycling through patterns that seemed both solemn and hopeful. Lieutenant Barnes, Naya said through her translator, you honor us with your courage. Before we begin, I must ask one final time. Are you certain you wish to proceed? There is no shame in choosing caution over bravery. Barnes looked around the room at the assembled humans and aliens. Captain Lee nodded encouragingly. Dr. Foster gave him a thumbs up. Even the usually stern Chief Wilson managed a supportive smile. I'm certain, Speaker Naya. Let's make history. One of the other Valari stepped forward carrying an ornate container made of what looked like living metal. Inside was a small vial filled with dark purple liquid that seemed to move with its own internal currents. Even through the container, the poison had an aura of danger that made everyone in the room step back instinctively. The trust poison, Naya explained. This particular sample was distilled from Nithara plants that have grown for over 1,000 years. It is among the most potent preparations we have ever created. Dr. Roberts checked his monitoring equipment one last time. All systems are green, Lieutenant. We'll know immediately if anything goes wrong. Barnes reached out and took the vial. From the Valari container, it was warm to the touch and seemed to pulse like a tiny heart. How much am I supposed to drink? All of it, Naya replied. The full dose is necessary for the test to be valid. The room fell silent as Barnes removed the stopper from the vial. The liquid inside had no smell, but something about it made his survival instincts scream warnings. This was poison, his body knew it, and every cell in his system was telling him to throw the vial away and run. Instead, he raised it in a toast to human stubbornness and the hope that our differences make us stronger together. Before he could lose his nerve, Barnes tilted his head back and drank the entire contents of the vial in one smooth motion. The effect was immediate and terrifying. Fire raced through his veins as the poison spread through his bloodstream. His vision blurred and his hands began to shake uncontrollably. The monitoring equipment started beeping frantically as his vital signs spiked and dropped in rapid succession. Neural activity is fluctuating wildly, Dr. Roberts called out, watching his displays with growing alarm. Heart rate jumping between 40 and 160 beats per minute. Barnes collapsed to his knees as waves of pain rolled through his nervous system. He could hear people shouting, but the words seemed to come from very far away. His body was fighting a war on the cellular level, and he wasn't sure which side was winning. Liver enzymes are spiking, Dr. Foster reported, reading data from her tablet. That's good. It means his system is trying to process the toxin. The world spun around Barnes as he fought to stay conscious. Through the haze of pain, he could see Speaker Naya watching intently, her colors shifting through patterns he had never seen before. The other Valari seemed equally fascinated, as if they were witnessing something unprecedented. 15 minutes, Dr. Roberts announced. That's longer than most species survive. The pain began to change, shifting from sharp agony to a deep, burning sensation that seemed to emanate from his core. Barnes could feel his body adapting, fighting back against the alien poison with resources he didn't know he possessed. His gut bacteria were working overtime, his liver was processing toxins at an incredible rate, and his nervous system was rooting around damaged pathways with surprising efficiency. 20 minutes, Dr. Roberts called out, his voice filled with amazement. Lieutenant, can you hear me? Barnes managed to nod, though even that simple movement sent waves of dizziness through his skull. He was still alive, still conscious, and slowly beginning to feel like the worst might be over. The monitoring equipment was showing stabilizing, vital signs. 30 minutes, Dr. Foster announced, unable to keep the excitement out of her voice. The toxin levels in his blood are actually dropping. His system is neutralizing the poison. Speaker Naya approached slowly, her colors now cycling through what could only be described as awe, remarkable. In all our centuries of conducting this ceremony, we have never seen such rapid recovery. Your species possesses adaptation capabilities that exceed our wildest estimates. Barnes struggled to his feet. Supported by Dr. Roberts and Captain Lee, his legs were shaky and his head was pounding, but he was alive and mostly functional. Did we pass the test? Naya's translator was silent for a long moment before her response came through. Lieutenant Barnes, you have not merely passed our test. You have redefined what we thought was possible. The Villari Collective will be honored to call humanity our allies. The cargo bay erupted in cheers from the human delegation while the Villari displayed their approval through intricate color patterns that filled the room with beautiful, shifting light. Barnes had done more than survive an alien poison. He had opened the door to a future where humanity would take its place among the stars as equals, not subjects. As the celebration continued around him, Barnes allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy had just become a much more interesting place. 3 weeks after the trust poison ceremony, Lieutenant Barnes stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed embassy station, watching as ships from a dozen different alien civilizations arrived for the first Galactic Trade Summit to include human representatives. His recovery had been remarkable, with no lasting effects from the Villari toxin except for an enhanced resistance to most poisons that Dr. Foster found fascinating from a medical standpoint. Hard to believe how much has changed, Captain Lee sighed, joining Barnes at the viewport. The station was a joint construction project, built using both human engineering and Villari biotechnology. It hung in space like a work of art, its living metal hull shifting colors in response to the various ship signatures approaching it. Barnes nodded, still amazed by the rapid developments. Speaker Naya wasn't kidding about how quickly news travels in the galactic community. It seems like every species wants to meet the humans who can drink poison for breakfast. The story of Barnes' survival had spread through the galaxy's communication networks faster than anyone had expected. The Villari had been so impressed that they immediately shared the news with their allies, who shared it with their allies, until half the galaxy had heard about the crazy humans who treated deadly toxins as a minor inconvenience. Dr. Foster approached with a tablet full of data and a smile that hadn't left her face since the ceremony. Mike, you need to see these test results. I've been analyzing samples of your blood from before and after the trust poison exposure. Your body didn't just survive the toxin, it actually incorporated some of its properties. What do you mean? Barnes asked, though he suspected he already knew. Over the past weeks, he had noticed that foods which used to be spicy barely affected him anymore, and he seemed to have developed an immunity to the mild sedatives Dr. Roberts occasionally prescribed. For insomnia, your liver has developed new enzyme pathways specifically designed to neutralize that class of neurotoxin. It's like your body learned from the experience and upgraded itself. We think this might be a unique human trait, the ability to adapt to toxins rather than just survive them. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the station's communication system. All human representatives, please report to Conference Room Alpha. The Galactic Council session is beginning. The walk to the conference room took them through corridors filled with beings Barnes was still learning to identify. The Karathi delegation moved in their distinctive martial formation, their scaled skin gleaming under the station's lighting. A group of ethereal Zelon floated past, their translucent bodies pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Even the hostile Rakan Empire had sent observers, though they maintained their distance from everyone else. Conference Room Alpha was a marvel of alien architecture, with seating and atmospheric controls adapted for dozens of different species. The human delegation took their assigned positions near the center of the room, a place of honor that reflected their new status in the galactic community. Speaker Naya called the session to order, her voice carrying clearly through the universal translation system. Honored representatives, we gather today to welcome humanity into our galactic community and to discuss the implications of their unique capabilities. The Karathi ambassador, a massive reptilian being named War Leader Thaxon, spoke first. The humans have proven their courage and adaptability. My people respect strength, and drinking the trust poison showed strength of the highest order. We propose immediate defensive alliance status, a murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Defensive alliance status was usually granted only after decades of careful negotiation and trust building. The Karathi were offering it to humanity after just 3 weeks of contact. The Zellan representative, whose name was a series of harmonic tones that the translator rendered as melody of stars, offered their perspective. Our medical research indicates that human biological adaptability could revolutionize treatment protocols across multiple species. We request permission to establish joint research facilities. Barnes found himself becoming the focus of attention as species after species offered trade agreements, research partnerships, and even military alliances. The simple act of surviving one alien poison had opened doors that diplomats might have spent centuries trying to open, but not everyone was pleased with the developments. The Raccoon Observer, a dark-armored figure whose species had conquered half their local galaxy cluster, stood to address the assembly. This human survived one toxin from one species. This proves nothing about their overall capabilities or their worthiness as allies. The room fell silent as the challenge hung in the air. The Raccoon were known for their aggression and their belief that only the strongest species deserved to exist. Their observer's tone suggested they saw humanity as a potential threat rather than a potential ally. Barnes felt all eyes in the room turn to him. This was another test, he realized, though hopefully one that wouldn't involve drinking poison. Honored Raccoon representative, what would you consider adequate proof of human capabilities? The Raccoon's helmet concealed their face, but their voice carried clear menace. Combat. The true test of a species is how they perform in battle. Your soft flesh and weak bones suggest you would not last long against a proper warrior. Captain Lee started to respond, but Barnes held up a hand. This was his moment, and he knew how to handle it. Raccoon Observer, you're absolutely right that combat is one way to test a species' strength. But humans have a different perspective on what makes a warrior. Barnes stood and walked to the center of the room, addressing not just the Raccoon but the entire assembly. You see, most species in the galaxy avoid poison because it's dangerous. Most species avoid combat because it's risky. But humans don't. Just survive dangerous things, we study them, we learn from them, and we turn them into advantages. He gestured to the Villari delegation. Speaker Nia's people gave me a toxin that has killed representatives from dozens of species. But instead of just surviving it, my body learned from it. Dr. Foster's tests show that I'm now immune to an entire class of neurotoxins that could cripple armies. The Raccoon Observer shifted in their seat, clearly not expecting this direction. Barnes continued, his voice gaining confidence. That's what makes humans different. We don't just face challenges, we grow stronger from them. Every poison we survive, every battle we fight, every problem we solve makes us more capable than we were before. Dr. Foster stood to support Barnes' statement. If I may address the assembly, our preliminary research suggests this adaptation ability extends beyond toxin resistance. Human immune systems, muscle development, even cognitive function all show remarkable improvement when exposed to controlled stressors. We believe this trait could benefit the entire galactic community. The Zellan representative pulsed with excited bioluminescent patterns. Imagine medical treatments that don't just cure diseases but make patients stronger than before. Imagine crops that grow better in hostile environments after being exposed to them gradually. War Leader Thaxon's massive form leaned forward with interest. And imagine soldiers who become more formidable with each battle they survive. The tactical applications are extraordinary. The Raccoon Observer stood abruptly. their armor clanking in the sudden silence. Words and theories. You speak of potential, but potential means nothing without proof. I challenge this human to single combat. If he can defeat a Rakan warrior, perhaps your species deserves consideration. Barnes felt his heart sink. The Rakan were legendary fighters, bred for warfare and enhanced with cybernetic implants. A human in single combat against a Rakan warrior was essentially a death sentence. But before he could respond, Speaker Naya intervened. Honored Rakan, the trust poison ceremony has already established human worthiness according to Valari tradition. However, if you insist on additional proof, perhaps we could arrange a different type of demonstration. The Rakan tilted their helmeted head. What do you propose? Naya's colors shifted to patterns that Barnes had learned indicated deep thought. The human speaks of adaptation and learning from challenges. Let us test this claim scientifically. We will expose Lieutenant Barnes to 3 different alien toxins, each from a different species, each designed to test different biological systems. If he survives and adapts to all 3, his claims will be proven. Barnes felt a chill run down his spine. 3 alien poisons in a single day would be beyond anything ever attempted. But as he looked around the room at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization, he realized this was bigger than just his survival. This was about humanity's place among the stars. I accept the challenge, he said before anyone could object, but I have one condition. This isn't just about proving human capabilities. If I survive this, I want the Rakan Empire to agree to peaceful relations with humanity. No raids on our colonies, no aggressive expansion into human space. The Rakan observer was silent for a long moment. Finally, they spoke. Agreed. But if you fail, humanity acknowledges Rakan superiority and accepts tributary status to our empire. Captain Lee started to protest, but Barnes cut him off. Deal. The next few hours were a blur of preparation and scientific setup. Dr. Foster worked frantically with alien medical specialists to establish monitoring protocols for 3 completely different toxin types. The Korathi provided a combat stimulant that had killed 17 other species. The Zellan offered a psychoactive compound that attacked cognitive function. Even the Rakan contributed a biological weapon they normally use to soften up enemy populations before invasion. As Barnes prepared for the most dangerous few hours of his life, he couldn't help but smile. 3 weeks ago, he had been a simple navigation officer on a routine patrol. Now he was about to risk everything to secure humanity's future among the stars. Dr. Foster approached with the first vial, the Korathi combat stimulant. Mike, you don't have to do this. We've already achieved more than anyone dreamed possible. Barnes took the vial and looked around the observation chamber where dozens of alien species watched through protective barriers. Amanda, our ancestors climbed down from trees and walked across continents to reach the sea. They crossed oceans in wooden boats to find new lands. They strapped themselves to rockets to reach the stars. This is just the next step in human exploration. He drank the Korathi stimulant without hesitation. The effect was like being struck by lightning. His nervous system went into overdrive, his heart rate spiked beyond safe levels, and his muscles began contracting involuntarily. But even as the poison tried to kill him, he could feel his body beginning to adapt, to learn, to grow stronger. 20 minutes later, he reached for the second vial. The Zellan psychoactive compound tasted like liquid starlight and immediately began attacking his cognitive functions. Reality became fluid, time moved in strange loops, and for several terrifying minutes he forgot who and where he was. But gradually his brain found new pathways around the damaged areas, new ways to process information that were actually more efficient than before. The third vial, the Rakan biological weapon, was the worst yet. It attacked every system simultaneously, trying to shut down his body like a computer virus. For 30 agonizing minutes, Barnes hung between life and death while his enhanced physiology fought the most sophisticated toxin the galaxy's most warlike species had ever developed. When it was over, when the monitoring equipment showed stable vital signs and the toxin levels in his blood dropped to 0, the observation chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from dozens of species were shouting questions, demanding to know how such adaptation was possible, offering research partnerships and military alliances. The Raccoon observers stood in stunned silence for several minutes before, finally removing their helmet to reveal a scarred, reptilian face marked by grudging respect. I have never seen such resilience. The Raccoon Empire acknowledges that humanity possesses capabilities worthy of our consideration. We will honor our agreement. Barnes, exhausted but triumphant, managed to stand with Dr. Foster's support. Around him, the assembled representatives of galactic civilization were already discussing the implications of what they had witnessed. Trade routes were being planned, research partnerships established, and defensive pacts negotiated. So what happens now? Barnes asked Speaker Naya as the crowd began to disperse. Her colors shifted to warm, welcoming hues. Now, Lieutenant Barnes, humanity takes its place among the stars not as subjects or supplicants, but as equals. Your species has proven that courage, adaptation, and the willingness to face the impossible are not just survival traits, but the foundation of true strength. As Barnes looked out through the observation chamber's viewport at the ships of a dozen civilizations, he realized that the galaxy had just become humanity's neighborhood. And if the events of the past few weeks had proven anything, it was that humans were very good neighbors to have.